What's up, guys? Welcome back to Rugged Adventures. I'm happy to have you guys here today because we are going to be looking at a couple of the titans of the pistol world. We have your grandfather's caliber. This is a 45 ACP. This is in a 1911. It's a full size with a threaded barrel. It has about a 5-inch barrel on it. We are going to compare that to the 10 millimeter. This is a Smith and Wesson M&P 2.0 10 millimeter, and it has a 4.61 inch barrel. And if you look at these, they're roughly the same length, other than the threaded barrel extension on the end of the 45 there. As far as dimensionally, they are about the same size. And we're going to be looking at our standard battery of tests today, including our wood block. And we'll see if the 10 millimeter can punch through a steel plate. Everyone tells me that this 10 millimeter is where it's at, and if you are not shooting it, then you're not shooting a real man's caliber. We'll check out our soda pop test, see which one goes through it any better. But before we get into that, the ammunition that we're using today for the 45 is just your typical 230 grain. This is Wolf steel case. It's going about 850 feet per second, which makes it awesome for subsonics. If there's one thing that you can say about the 45 ACP that really it just kills every other caliber in, is that you can shoot a full strength cartridge downrange. You can do it subsonically. This one also has significantly less snappier recoil than the 10 millimeter. And that was a big reason why the FBI went away from the 10 millimeter to the 40 cal, which is just a cut down 10 millimeter, and then even away from the 40 cal to the 9 millimeter for their everyday usage. And having now had this and shot it, I can definitely see why this would not be a caliber that every single person that they had on the FBI is able to control. This is very snappy. This is it's a very high power cartridge, and the ones that we're using today are these 10 millimeters. They come from Freedom Munitions. They are 180 grain. They're rated for 1120 feet per second. And so when you look at that, you got about 500 feet-pounds energy coming from the muzzle versus the 45 is right around 370. And when you look at that compared to like a 5.56 out of a rifle, you're approaching the 50% mark of the energy coming out of this with like a 55 grain 5.56 coming out of this pistol that you have much less control over than a rifle. So let's get right to it and see which one's going to come out on top. I'll be honest with you, the 40 pretty much wiped the floor with the 45 ACP, despite having about an inch less barrel. So I expect the same for the 10 millimeter, but perhaps the 45 will shine in ways other than just the subsonics about it and the less recoil, at least less snappy recoil. All right, we've got our 1x1x1 wood block down there that we use that for soft target testing. Why don't we use ballistic gel? Because it's like $90 for one thing. You can get like 250 45 ACPs for that price. So we use 1x1x1 wood block. We're going to go with the 45 first for age over beauty and see what each one of these does. Now, when we do these, this can be indication of a couple different things that we're looking for. Does this penetrate more than the 10 millimeter, or does this dump all of its energy into a shorter space? We'll see how it goes. And we also have some 9 millimeter shots in there from a previous video using like 3.5, 4.5, and 16-inch barrels that we can compare all of this to. So without further ado, the 45 ACP. Alrighty, right up there by the subscribe. And then the 10 millimeter. I think I put that one down there a little low and to the left. Let's hit it again real quick just to make sure we get a good shot. So we're going to find some interesting things in this one that I didn't think that we would. First of all, this is our 45 up here, and these are our two 10 millimeters. I thought that this down here was a 10 millimeter hole, this screw hole, because I have found myself pulling down and essentially anticipating the recoil of the 10 millimeter. It is quite snappy, and I'm not sure if you guys can hear that on the camera, but it is definitely a much more snappy, much more shrill report, likely because the bullet is going faster than the speed of sound. But you can see our 45 here always punches a big hole, and you could, if you look at it, it's sort of not completely like drilled out, whereas our 10 millimeters going faster are absolutely, you know, drilled out that hole. Now, if you look here, this is a 9 millimeter from a P365, which is like a 3.5 or so inch barrel, a Palmetto State dagger with a threaded barrel, so like 4.5, and then a sub 2K, a Kel-Tec sub 2K with a 16-inch barrel, and that is going to give us some unique results when we get to it that I was really not expecting. So once we get in here, you know, everyone likes to argue in the comments, so I put that there as well. Our 45, our 10 millimeter, and even our 9 millimeters are still cruising through this no problem. We get to our third section here. Again, 45, the 10s. They really haven't encountered anything odd or anything. This one got into a little knot there. And I always like to say that this sort of better represents actually shooting something than ballistic gel, which is just perfectly, you know, homogeneous throughout the entire thing. Our fourth board here, we are 45 up here. The 10s are still going, even the 9 millimeters are still tracking through, no problem. And then in our fifth board here, this is where our 45 comes to a stop. This is a 45 bullet just jammed in there. Our first 9 millimeter from our P365 stopped somewhere in here, and then our dagger also stopped at the previous board, and that's a video that you guys can check out. I'll link it down below. Basically, that pistol barrel length isn't as important as a lot of folks say, as far as just penetration, you know, as you see here. Now, our 10 millimeters here, you can see one of our 10 millimeters stopped in this board, the other one continued through, and our sub 2K is also continuing through as well. And then when we get into our, what do we, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sixth board, it stops right in the beginning of the sixth board, which is about right where the sub 2K stopped with a 9 millimeter with a 16-inch barrel. But if you look at all of those, you know, obviously the 10 millimeter wins this test. It went a little bit farther than the 45, but not as much as I would have thought. I would have thought that increased velocity, 1.5 millimeters less diameter on the bullet would have made it go through, but it did not. But the wild thing is that in the course of about, you know, 1.5 inches, basically separated the 4.5 inch barrel 9 millimeter and the 4.6 inch barrel 10 millimeter that is supposed to be so much stronger, so much better, and as everyone on the internet says, a real man's caliber. You guys can argue that in the comments and just go absolutely nuts. So next is our steel plate test. This is a 1/8 inch piece of just regular carbon steel. This isn't AR500. It's nothing fancy, and we've shot this with nearly every pistol that I have, from the 9 millimeter to the 45 to the 40. It may have even taken some stray 10 millimeter hits at this point, you know, when we're just shooting from up there and I'm just demonstrating something shooting in this general direction. We'll see if the 10 millimeter can get through it. I know that the 45 can't, and this speaks a lot to its ability to penetrate body armor. Or, you know, if you're ever had that situation, folks say, oh, you got to go with the 10 millimeter because it's the most powerful, it has the most stopping power, blah blah blah. Maybe that's the case when it hits, but so far we have not gotten any round to go through. And so if you're looking at 1/8 just regular mild carbon steel versus, you know, a 3/8 or 1/4 inch AR500 piece of steel, you know, actual armor, we've shot a level 3+ from up there 25 yards away to here with a 308 at I think it's 1/4 inch AR500 armor from one of those 2 for $99 Facebook deals. Did not go through it. So don't have high hopes for the 10 millimeter, but we'll give it a shot anyhow. First up, the 45 ACP out of the 1911, which just an iconic gun, and it's so big and heavy that even the recoil of a 45, it's just, it like sucks it right up. So again, if I didn't tell you guys, we're like 9 yards away, something like that. If you can't tell that it's a relatively short distance. Let's see where this one goes. Looks like we nailed it right there in the upper right. See if we can put this one in a different area. I don't know. And just below it. So we'll go down and take a look. Doesn't look like it went through. As I suspected, neither of them penetrated, but this 10 millimeter did punch a very sizable dent in this thing. If you look back here, although this thing has been, you know, pretty compromised from all the other shots, we still have not gotten a pistol round to go through it. And I'm not sure what it would take to go through it, if we need to go bigger or if we need to go smaller but higher velocity, like maybe a 5.7. And that's something that we can do in the future. But you still wouldn't be happy if you got hit with this. This would hurt extremely bad. And as a matter of fact, we found the 10 millimeter bullet down here. That's it, flattened out where it hit. It's still warm, so it's a draw there. The 10 millimeter was a little bit, you know, more effective as far as making a dent, but didn't go through. So here we are again at everyone's favorite scientific test, the soda can test, to see how far these can go through them. This is actually been regarded as one of the most accurate tests in the history of science. I got people coming to me asking, hey, we want you to come work for Big Science because this is so good. And I'm like, I can't. I have a responsibility to my viewers. And when we're looking at this, we're going to see how many each one of these goes through. And again, like the wood test that we had before, that's kind of subjective on what you want it to do. Do you want the bullet to penetrate more, or do you want it to dump all of its energy as soon as it hits the target, which for a lot of people with pistols is the way that they want it to go. But since this is actually not science and totally entertainment, we're going to just shoot them and see what happens. First up on our list is 45 ACP. This one has historically not gone through many. I think like 6 or 8 has been as much as it's ever gotten. We'll see if that changes today. It looks like it did do more, but we'll see if it actually hit them or just knocked them off the table. So we had 12 on there, we have 2 left, and it legitimately got 10. Every single one of these is blown wide open, and you know, it shot them. So it went through 10, no problem. I was hoping I could find a bullet in here, in one of them, but I just can't. So I don't know if it was kind of just going down the sides of them or what, but I still have yet to find a bullet on here. You know, if you look at the table, we have several marks here, but all of these look to be, you know, older ones that now have mold and crap on them. So 10 is what the 45 got. We'll see if the 10 millimeter gets more than 10. It's kind of hard to say. So gun can science test number 2 with the 10 millimeter. Let's see if it does any better than the 45 does. Take the safety off, and it looks like they're all gone. That was a big explosion. There was a lot of soda flying around. Let's take a look at the results. So as you guys probably saw in the slow-mo, absolutely destroyed all of them. There is not one of these that isn't absolutely eviscerated. Some of these are turned inside out. There is this one here that is obvious that it went in like here-ish, came out the backside. I can't find any of the bullets. I'd love to show them to you. But I think if you guys go back and rewind the footage back to the 45, you'll see that these ones are considerably more distorted, destroyed. Just it's just amazing how much more damage there is with these. And so for this one, I can solidly say that the 10 millimeter definitely wins this one, if punching through a lot of stuff is what you're looking for in your pistol round. Now, in past videos, we've had trouble cleaning this up. There's, you know, soft drink everywhere. It's sticky. Insects are flying around. And it just becomes a mess. So we now have 2 5-gallon pails of water that we're going to be able to wash this all down with. And we're going to make kind of our final point on these 2 firearms, is that in general, 10 millimeters have a larger mag capacity than 45s. Now, granted, this is a 1911. It has a mag capacity of 8+1. This has a mag capacity of 15+1. There are ones that do better. I think the Glock holds, like the Glock 21, I think it holds 10 or 11 in the 45 configuration. But in general, with the 10 millimeter being 1.5 millimeters narrower in diameter than the 45, you just get more in this. And so we have these loaded to the maximum, and we are going to use them to clean up our mess today. So you got 9 there, and it does create a pretty solid stream of water coming out of there. But let's see what happens when we have, what is it, 16 out of this 10 millimeter in the other one. So when we tally up the results here today, I think that we come out with a clear winner, and we can start with mag capacity. The 10 millimeter beats the 45 nearly in every scenario. In this case, obviously 2 kind of different things, but more 10 millimeters where a 45 could be. The 45 is definitely the subsonic winner. As a matter of fact, I think it's probably the best round to suppress, especially in a pistol. It's great. It would be on like the 300 blackout. This is probably one of the best rounds to suppress. The recoil on the 45, at least with this pistol, is much more manageable and is just much better than the 10 millimeter. 10 millimeter, you're shooting a heck of a bullet here. There's a lot of power coming out of this thing. This is a little bit more manageable on the recoil. But then when we get into the actual tests themselves, the 10 millimeter really shone on the woodblock test. Even though it didn't get much farther than the 45 or even the 9 millimeter, but it did win that. It did have a slight edge on the steel test. None of them have went through, and that's only just 1/8 carbon steel. It's not armor or anything like that. No pistol rounds have gone through that yet, but this did definitely leave a much bigger dent, and so that is going to be a slight win for it there. And then in the soft drink test, it blew away all the cans. I mean, just obliterated them, eviscerated all 12 versus the 10 for this one, which is no slouch. And, a lot of you guys out there might say, hey, that's better that this one only did 10 and dumped all of its energy into 10 instead of, having it go off and exit the target at the other end out of 12 and just absolutely turn those inside and out. But for the purposes of today's test, the 10 millimeter, the man's pistol, as everyone tells me on the internet in the comments, and you guys can leave your own comments about whether you think that this is good, not good, right, wrong. If you're a big time 45 guy and you just absolutely can't see anything, I'll do it. Leave them down below, but the 10 millimeter wins today. I appreciate you guys coming out here and watching. If you guys haven't yet, hit that like button. It really helps out the channel. Subscribe down below, leave your comments, and I will see you on the next one.